Hi, this is Claudia Cabrera. I hope everybody's enjoying their Thanksgiving holiday. I'm going to present to you today chapters 5 and 18 of the Handbook of Bilingual and Multilingual Education. Chapter number 5 is Literacy in Bilingual and Multilingual Education. And I'm going to go over the main areas for discussion of literacy in multilingual settings. Number 1, new understandings of languages as dynamic systems. The author describes the issue of static versus fluid, and that is the notion in terms of thinking of like a language as a language. It has implications for discussion of bilingualism and multilingualism, and the author talks about if a language is a thing, then multilingualism logically involves two or more things. So two questions arise. How do we explain the fact that people have different levels of proficiency in different languages? And in code switching between languages, and what point do we assign an utterance to one language rather than another? So therefore, this creates the dynamic phenomenon within the bilingualism and multilingualism systems. Number 2, parallel developments in our understanding of literacy. Now, until recently, literacy has been thought of as a set of skills learned independently of context. Street in 1984 named this autonomous model of literacy. And the more ideological model describes literacy as a monolithic construct made up of discrete sets of skills that is embedded in complex social relations and maintains asymmetries of power. This brings us to the three theorists that have studied the embeddedness of the complex social relationships. Number 1, Cummins proposes under the common underlying proficiency theory that although surface features such as grammar and vocabulary vary considerably from one language to another, they are integrated in a single thought process. They can be transferred from one language to another and do not need to be retaught. Hornberger proposed the continua of biliteracy model, and it encompasses 4 clusters. The first is the context of biliteracy, and it talks about influence of choice of the medium of communication. And then development of biliteracy, where they might be placed on a receptive and productive continuum. The third is content of biliteracy, where minority and majority languages contextualized, drawing on children's own experiences, and decontextualized, where little attention is placed on experiences outside of the classroom. And the last, media of biliteracy, ways in which people acquire literacy, simultaneous, successive exposure, similar and dissimilar language structures, and more or less convergent scripts. Now, Senas constructed the framework of continuum of multilingual education, which is an extension of Hornberger's continuum of biliteracy. And as you can see, at the heart of the framework is the variables that interact with schooling. So you have an emphasis of not only the continuum of biliteracy, but also the continuum of less multilingual to more monolingual. And in the center of it, you have the constructs for school. So you have the language of instruction, the teacher, where the teacher is placed on the continuum as far as their perspective and experiences, and also the school context. And this is an excellent model for assessing dual language programs. Number 4 is the influence of competing theories of learning on approaches to the teaching of reading and writing. So these approaches are, the first one is the approach part to whole, stresses explicit teaching of a set of skills. And the other is the approach of whole to part, whole language, which proposes teaching sound letter correspondence is best taught in context. Number 5 is new understandings of the role of cultural difference for children's achievement in learning to read and write. So there are 3 different multilingual pedagogies, critical multilingual pedagogies. Number 1 is Lewis Moll's Funds of Knowledge, Jim Cummings' Community, Culture, and Language, and Ofelia Garcia's Translanguaging. Now, Chapter 18 is Early Childhood Education and Dual Language Learners. A historical overview. Dual language learners are the fastest growing segment in the U.S. population. In addition, the representation of children learning English as a second language in the U.S. are early childhood, pre-K, and kindergartners. Now, on December 12, 2007, Head Start was an issue, and President Bush signed into law the Improving Head Start for School Readiness Act of 2007, and this included several multicultural principles. Every individual is rooted in their culture and language. Every individual has the right to remain his or her own identity while acquiring skills required to function on a diverse society. And effective programs for children who speak languages other than English require development of the first language while the acquisition of English is facilitated. The next slide is the current state of knowledge on dual language learners in an early childhood educational setting. So there are 2 types of program models. One is the English immersion, and the second one is the dual language bilingual education program. And so there was a study done by Barnett et al. 2007, which compared an English-only program to a dual language biliteracy educational program, and found that the Spanish speakers that were in the and monolingual speakers that were in the dual language program made significant gains. First, the Spanish speakers gained significantly in Spanish vocabulary, and both native Spanish and English speakers made phonetic awareness gains in English. So this shows you that the best practices would be implementing a dual language program. Effective practices for dual language learners in early education. So what are the optimal learning environments? There are 3 different components. The bilingual exposure in an early language program. And this consists of what research indicates is that supporting home language while acquiring a second language produces the best results for academic growth for ELLs. And there is substantial benefits in the areas of language and cognitive sensitivities and executive function for dual language instruction in early childhood education settings. The second is bilingual instruction and assessment practices. Strategies should include support in comprehension, vocabulary development, and literacy. While more appropriate assessments are being developed to accurately assess in 2 languages, teachers must be aware of how assessments accurately or inaccurately portray bilingual development and learning. And then also teachers must make adjustments to curriculum as needed for further development in biliteracy. And the last component is appropriate teacher training and development. This is very, very important. Teachers need proper training to understand how to assess and adjust the curriculum. And also we need quality teachers with knowledge and skills specific to working with young bilingual learners. This is really important for an effective program. There is significant research in comparing monolingual learners and bilingual students' development, but there is a desperate need of research in the area of understanding the development and learning styles specific to young emergent bilingual learning in two languages. And as far as policies, the government, what's been recommended by the authors is that the government needs to provide funding for to hire highly qualified teachers that are culturally knowledgeable, and they need training in bilingual education and acquisition. And there's a need to expand our dual language bilingual programs. And that is the end of my presentation, and I hope that it was informative and can't wait to see you back in class. Thank you.